Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about something that quietly destroys the listening skill of millions of English learners around the world: subtitles. At first, subtitles feel helpful. They feel safe, comfortable, like a friend supporting you while you watch English movies. But sometimes, they become a prison, and most learners never realize it. They think they are improving because they watch English content every day. Netflix, YouTube, movies, TV shows, podcasts with captions, hours and hours of content. But after months, sometimes even years, they still cannot understand real English without reading. And that is painful because they are working hard, they are spending time, they are trying, but the result never changes. Maybe this happened to you too. You start a movie without subtitles. After 30 seconds, your brain feels nervous. The actors speak too fast. The words disappear. Everything feels blurry. So you turn subtitles back on. Immediately, you feel relaxed again. Suddenly, you understand everything. The story becomes clear. The conversation makes sense. And you tell yourself, "Good, I'm learning English." But are you really learning listening, or are you just reading fast? That question changed the way I learned English forever. And I want to tell you a story. Years ago, I met a guy from Germany while traveling. His English was not perfect. His grammar had mistakes. Sometimes he paused to think. But when native speakers talked, he understood almost everything immediately. Fast speech, jokes, movies, conversations in noisy places. He understood naturally. I asked him, "How did you train your listening?" And his answer surprised me. He said, "I stopped hiding behind subtitles." That sentence stayed in my head for a very long time because I realized something uncomfortable. I had been watching English for years, but my ears were weak, very weak. My eyes were doing all the work. Every time subtitles appeared on the screen, my brain chose the easiest path: reading, not listening. And your brain always chooses the easier job if you allow it. That is normal human behavior. Think about it carefully. When subtitles appear, your eyes immediately move down to the text. Even if you tell yourself, "I will listen carefully." No, your brain already made the decision. Reading is faster. Reading is easier. Reading gives instant understanding. So your ears slowly become lazy. Not because you are stupid, because your brain is efficient. It wants comfort. It wants speed. It wants certainty. And subtitles give all three. But there is a hidden cost, a very dangerous cost. You start believing you understand spoken English, when actually you understand written English. Huge difference. One day I tested this on myself. I watched a scene from a TV show with subtitles. Perfect understanding. Almost every sentence was clear. Then I replayed the exact same scene without subtitles. Suddenly, everything collapsed. The actors sounded faster. The words connected together strangely. Some sentences completely disappeared. And that was the moment I understood the brutal truth. I was not practicing listening skill. I was practicing reading speed. That realization hurt my ego. Maybe it hurts yours too. Because many learners secretly believe, if I can understand with subtitles, my listening must already be good. No, not necessarily. Real listening happens when your ears recognize sound without text support. That is the real test. And honestly, this is why so many learners stay stuck for years. They consume endless English content, but they never train the actual listening muscle. Imagine someone who wants stronger legs, but every day, instead of walking, they sit in a car. Yes, they are traveling. Yes, they are moving forward. But their legs are not doing the work. That is exactly what subtitles can become: a vehicle replacing your ears. Now listen carefully. I am not saying subtitles are evil. Subtitles are useful, very useful. The problem is dependence. Using subtitles strategically is smart. Needing subtitles for everything is dangerous. Big difference. And most learners never notice when support slowly becomes addiction. Here is something else nobody tells you. Your listening skill grows inside discomfort, not comfort. The uncomfortable moments are the moments where your brain changes. When you hear a sentence and struggle to catch it, your brain starts searching, analyzing, predicting sounds, connecting patterns. That difficult process is training. But subtitles interrupt that process too quickly. Before your ears can struggle, your eyes steal the answer. Game over. Training finished. And this creates a very frustrating cycle. You keep watching. You keep reading. You feel productive. But when subtitles disappear, panic returns immediately. Because your listening foundation never became strong. I know this feeling deeply. I remember watching a crime series late at night years ago. Without subtitles, I understood maybe 20%. I felt exhausted after 15 minutes. My brain kept screaming, "Turn subtitles back on." And honestly, I almost did. Because silence feels uncomfortable. Not understanding feels uncomfortable. Your brain hates confusion. But something important was happening during those painful minutes. For the first time, my ears were actually working, not my eyes, my ears. And that changed everything. The strange thing about listening is that improvement is almost invisible in the beginning. You sit there feeling confused. You replay the same sentence 5 times. You catch one word, then maybe two, then nothing again. And your brain starts saying dangerous things. This is too hard. My English is bad. I'm wasting time. But that voice is lying to you. Because real listening development does not feel smooth. It feels messy. A child learning to walk falls constantly. A person learning piano presses wrong keys every day. An athlete becomes stronger by struggling against resistance. Listening works exactly the same way. The problem is that most English learners never stay inside the struggle long enough. They escape too early, and subtitles become the escape button. I once knew a woman from Brazil named Camila. Very intelligent, very disciplined. She watched English movies every single night after work. For almost 3 years. 3 years. She could explain movie plots perfectly. She knew many expressions. Her vocabulary was impressive. But one day she joined an online meeting with native speakers from Canada and Australia. After 10 minutes, she looked completely lost. Not because she lacked intelligence. Not because she lacked vocabulary. Her ears simply were not trained for real-time English without text support. After the meeting, she told me something honest. When people speak naturally, I feel blind. That sentence is powerful because subtitles create a dangerous illusion of progress. You feel close to fluency, but the moment subtitles disappear, reality hits hard. And here is the painful truth most people avoid. Listening is not knowledge. Listening is reaction. You do not have time to translate. You do not have time to analyze grammar. You do not have time to remember vocabulary lists. Real conversation moves too fast. Your ears must recognize sound automatically. That is why some learners know thousands of English words, but still freeze during conversation. Their knowledge exists, but too slowly. And subtitles often make this worse because reading gives your brain extra time. Real life does not. Think about conversations in your own language. Do you translate every sentence? No. You recognize sound instantly. That instant recognition is what your English ears need to build. And there is only one way to build it. Exposure without dependency. Not total suffering. Not impossible movies with impossible accents. Smart struggle. That is the key. Many learners make another mistake here. They hear someone say, "Stop using subtitles." So they completely remove subtitles overnight. Terrible idea. After 2 days, they feel exhausted and quit. Why? Because they turn training into punishment. Your brain needs challenge, but it also needs direction. That is why the smartest learners do not use subtitles emotionally. They use subtitles strategically. Huge difference. Here is a system that changed my listening more than anything else I ever tried. Simple, practical, real. Step 1. Watch a short scene without subtitles first. Not an entire movie. That is too much. Start with 2 minutes, maybe even 1 minute. And during this first watch, your only job is simple. Listen actively. Do not panic when you miss words. Do not stop every second. Do not reach for subtitles immediately like an addict reaching for comfort. Just listen. Your brain needs time to fight with the sound. At first, it feels terrible. You hear connected sounds instead of clear words. Everything feels too fast. Actors swallow syllables. Sentences crash into each other. Good. That discomfort means your ears are finally entering the gym. Most people never stay in this phase long enough. They run away too quickly. But if you stay calm, something interesting starts happening. Your brain begins predicting. Even without understanding every word, you start catching emotion, tone, rhythm, intentions. A question sounds like a question. Anger sounds different from sadness. Sarcasm has its own music. This matters more than you think. Because real listening is not only about words, it is also about emotional patterns. Native speakers constantly use tone to communicate meaning, and subtitles often distract you from hearing those emotional signals. Now, step 2. After listening without subtitles, turn subtitles on and check what you missed. This part is very important. You are not using subtitles to carry you anymore. You are using them to verify. That changes everything psychologically. Now subtitles become a tool, not a crutch. And here is where many shocking discoveries happen. Sometimes the sentence was much simpler than you imagined. Your brain heard, I should have probably gone there earlier. But the actor actually said, should have gone earlier. Tiny sounds, fast rhythm, connected speech. That is real English. Movies are full of this, and textbooks almost never prepare learners for it properly. This is why learners often say, I know these words individually, but I can't hear them in movies. Of course not, because spoken English is not a robot reading dictionary entries. Real speech melts together, changes shape, disappears. Native speakers reduce sounds constantly because communication is about speed and rhythm, not perfect pronunciation. That realization changed the way I listened forever. I stopped asking, why are they speaking unclearly? And started asking, how does real spoken English actually behave? That question made me improve much faster. Now comes step 3. Watch the same scene again without subtitles. This is where magic starts happening. Not movie magic, brain magic. Suddenly, your ears catch words that were invisible before. Sentences sound slower. Patterns appear. Connected speech becomes clearer. Not because the actors changed. Your brain changed. That is listening growth. Real growth. And one important thing, do not chase perfection. This obsession with understanding 100% destroys motivation. Even native speakers miss words sometimes, especially in movies with loud music, heavy accents, whispering, or emotional scenes. Understanding 80% naturally is already powerful, very powerful. But many learners are too impatient to see this progress. They want instant fluency, instant confidence, instant understanding. Life does not work that way, and English definitely does not. Your ears are building completely new neural patterns. That takes repetition, patience, exposure. Not motivation videos, not grammar books alone, and certainly not endless passive watching with subtitles glued permanently to the screen. At some point, you must allow your ears to struggle honestly, because dependence feels safe. But safety slows growth. And that truth applies far beyond language learning, too. There is another reason subtitles become addictive that most people never talk about. Subtitles remove uncertainty, and human beings hate uncertainty. When you hear English without subtitles, your brain enters a strange situation. You are no longer fully in control. You miss details. You doubt yourself. You feel mentally exposed. That feeling is uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Especially for people who were always good students. People who are used to understanding everything perfectly in school often struggle the most with listening practice. Because listening is chaotic, messy, incomplete. Real conversations are full of interruptions, unfinished sentences, slang, background noise, emotions, and accents. Real English does not wait for you politely. And subtitles protect you from that chaos. They create order, clarity, security. But there is a hidden danger in too much clarity. Your brain never learns how to survive inside uncertainty. And real communication requires exactly that skill. I remember talking to a student from Japan who told me something interesting. He said, when subtitles disappear, I feel anxious immediately. Not confused, anxious. That word matters because for many learners, subtitles are not just language support anymore, they become emotional support. Without subtitles, learners feel vulnerable, slow, embarrassed, so they avoid the discomfort. But avoidance is expensive. Every time you escape difficulty, you delay adaptation. Your brain only adapts when it faces pressure repeatedly. That is true in sports, in business, in life, and definitely in language learning. One of the biggest lies online is this idea that learning should always feel easy. No. Effective learning often feels difficult, not impossible, not painful forever, but difficult enough to force change. Think about the first time you heard a strong British accent, or Australian English, or fast American street conversation. It probably sounded impossible. But after enough exposure, your brain slowly began separating the sounds. At first, noise, then patterns, then meaning. That transformation is one of the most beautiful parts of language learning. But subtitles often interrupt this process before your ears fully engage. Here is something I noticed in myself years ago. When subtitles were on, I became impatient with listening. If I missed a word, my eyes immediately searched for the answer. Instant rescue, instant comfort. But without subtitles, something different happened. My concentration became sharper. My ears worked harder. My brain started predicting words based on context. And prediction is a huge part of real listening. Native speakers do this constantly without realizing it. They do not hear every sound perfectly. Their brains predict meaning based on experience, emotion, and situation. That is why even native speakers can understand conversations in noisy restaurants or crowded streets. Their brains are filling gaps automatically. Your English brain must learn this too. And subtitles can sometimes weaken this skill because they remove the need to predict. Everything is already visible. No effort required. Now let me tell you something important. There is a huge difference between active watching and passive watching. Passive watching feels productive, but often changes very little. This is when you sit on the sofa watching 5 episodes with subtitles while checking your phone every 10 minutes. Yes, it is English exposure. Better than nothing, but it is weak training. Active watching is different. Active watching means your brain is fully engaged. You pause, replay, notice pronunciation, observe rhythm, study connected speech, repeat sentences aloud. Even 15 minutes of active listening can be more powerful than 3 hours of passive watching. And this is where many learners sabotage themselves. They consume too much and train too little. They chase quantity instead of depth. One episode deeply studied is more valuable than 10 episodes half watched. And honestly, most people know this already. They just do not want to accept it because deep practice requires patience. It requires focus. And modern attention spans are broken. People want fast results from shallow effort. English does not care about your impatience. Your ears develop through repetition and attention. There is no shortcut. I learned this lesson in a frustrating way. Years ago, I became obsessed with one short scene from a movie, only 40 seconds long. At first, I understood almost nothing naturally. so I studied it repeatedly over several days. I listened sentence by sentence. I copied pronunciation. I shadowed the actors. I replayed tiny sections again and again. Honestly, part of me felt stupid. Repeating 40 seconds for days felt ridiculous. But then something happened. A few weeks later, I heard similar speech patterns in a completely different movie, and suddenly, I understood them immediately. That was the moment I realized listening improvement is cumulative. Your brain stores sound patterns over time. Every difficult listening session is building future understanding, even when progress feels invisible today. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. 10 focused minutes every day can completely transform your listening over a year. But most learners never experience this transformation because they quit during the uncomfortable phase, the phase where improvement is happening silently beneath the surface. Imagine planting seeds and digging them up every week because you cannot see growth yet. That is exactly how impatient learners treat listening practice. Too much judging, too much panic, too little trust in the process. And subtitles often become part of that impatience. Learners want immediate understanding instead of long-term development. But immediate understanding's not always the same as real growth. Sometimes confusion is productive. Sometimes struggle is necessary. Sometimes your brain needs to sit inside uncertainty long enough to adapt. And honestly, this is where mental toughness becomes important. Not toxic motivation, not fake confidence, just the willingness to stay uncomfortable a little longer than before. Because every learner reaches a moment where they must choose comfort now or improvement later. And that choice quietly shapes the future of your English. One thing that changed my listening faster than anything else was understanding this simple truth. You do not need to hear every word to understand meaning. That sentence sounds small, but for many learners, it changes everything. Because most people listen the wrong way. They listen word by word, like a machine. They hear one unknown word and immediately panic. Their attention breaks. Their confidence drops. And while they are mentally fighting that one missing word, the conversation continues without them. Native speakers do not listen this way. They listen for meaning, context, emotion, direction. Imagine someone says, "Honestly, I was gonna go, but I ended up staying home because I felt exhausted." Maybe you miss ended up. Maybe you miss exhausted. But you still understand the main idea. The person stayed home because they were tired. That is real listening. Real communication survives imperfect understanding. But subtitle addiction trains the opposite habit. It trains perfection dependence. When subtitles are always visible, your brain expects complete clarity every second. So the moment clarity disappears, anxiety appears. And anxiety destroys listening performance. Your brain becomes tense. Your focus narrows. Your ears stop processing naturally. This is why some learners understand movies better alone than during real conversations. Movies with subtitles feel controlled. Real life does not. In real conversations, nobody pauses so you can read. Nobody rewinds their sentence. Nobody gives you perfect audio quality. Real English is alive, messy, fast, human. And your ears need practice inside that reality. Now, here is something important. Many learners misunderstand. Listening improvement is not linear. Some days you feel amazing. You understand entire scenes naturally. You catch jokes. You recognize expressions instantly. Then the next day, you watch another movie, and suddenly everything feels impossible again. This confuses people. They think, I got worse. No. Different content creates different difficulty. Accents change. Vocabulary changes. Speaking speed changes. Energy changes. A slow family drama is different from a loud action movie. A podcast is different from a street interview. British humor sounds different from American casual speech. Your brain is constantly adapting to new sound environments. That is normal. And honestly, this is another reason subtitles become emotionally addictive. Subtitles create consistency in situations where listening feels unpredictable. But growth lives inside unpredictability. I remember watching interviews with actors years ago. At first, I struggled badly, not because their English was advanced, because real interviews are chaotic. People interrupt each other. They laugh while speaking. They mumble. They change topics quickly. There is no clean textbook structure. At first, I hated it. Then, slowly, I realized something powerful. This chaos was exactly what my ears needed. Because real life sounds more like interviews than classroom recordings. And once I accepted that, my listening started becoming more flexible. Not perfect. Flexible. That matters more. Many learners secretly train only for ideal English. Clear pronunciation, slow speed, perfect grammar. But the real world does not speak ideal English. Real people speak emotionally. They swallow sounds, change direction mid-sentence, use slang, speak while tired, speak while excited. And your ears must become comfortable inside that imperfection. Here is a practical thing you should start doing immediately. Reduce subtitle dependence gradually, not emotionally. Do not suddenly force yourself through a 3-hour movie without subtitles and suffer like a hero. That is stupid. Train intelligently. For example, watch 5 minutes without subtitles. Then check subtitles afterward. Then repeat. The next week, maybe increase to 7 minutes. Then 10. Small, consistent pressure changes the brain much faster than extreme pressure followed by burnout. And another thing, choose content you genuinely enjoy. This matters more than people realize, because attention changes listening quality. When you care about the story, your brain becomes naturally more engaged. Curiosity increases focus. Emotion increases memory. That is why people often learn phrases from favorite movies without even trying. The emotional connection makes the language stick. So stop choosing content only because someone online said, "This is good for English learners." Choose something you actually want to understand. Comedy, sports interviews, crime documentaries, cooking shows, gaming streams, anything. If you enjoy it, you will stay longer during difficult moments. And staying longer is where progress happens. Now let me tell you another brutal truth. Some learners use subtitles because they are afraid of feeling stupid. That fear is more common than people admit. Without subtitles, they feel slow, confused, childlike, and their ego hates that feeling. But language learning requires temporary stupidity. There is no way around it. Every fluent speaker once sounded ridiculous. Every listener once felt lost. The people who improve are not the people who avoid embarrassment. They are the people willing to look confused for a while. This is why children learn languages faster emotionally. Children do not protect their ego constantly. Adults do. Adults want immediate competence. Children tolerate confusion naturally. And honestly, subtitles sometimes become ego protection more than learning support. A shield against discomfort. But shields can become cages if you never put them down. Years ago, I forced myself to spend 1 month reducing subtitles aggressively but intelligently, not completely removing them. Reducing dependence. At first, my listening confidence dropped hard. That surprised me. I suddenly realized how much support subtitles had been giving me emotionally. Without them, everything felt slower and less certain. But after 2 weeks, something changed. My ears became more alert automatically. I stopped relying on text rescue. I started trusting sound more. And then one night it happened. I watched a scene completely naturally without realizing it. No subtitles, no panic, no translating. Just understanding. Simple, automatic, real. And the feeling was incredible. Not because I understood every word perfectly, but because for the first time, English felt alive instead of decoded. That moment is waiting for every serious learner. But most people never reach it because they stay addicted to safety. After that experience, I stopped asking myself the wrong question. The wrong question is, how can I understand everything perfectly? That question creates pressure, fear, frustration. The better question is, how can I become more comfortable with not understanding everything immediately? That small change in mindset matters a lot, because fluent listeners are not people who hear perfectly. They are people who stay relaxed, even when information is missing. And relaxed brains understand more. Tense brains understand less. This is why panic is one of the biggest enemies of listening skill. The moment your brain says, "Oh no, I missed that sentence," your attention leaves the present moment. Now you are thinking about the past sentence while the next 3 sentences are already flying past you. And suddenly, the entire conversation collapses. I see this happen constantly with learners, especially during movies. One unknown expression destroys their confidence for the next 2 minutes, but strong listeners recover quickly. They miss something and continue forward calmly. That is a skill, a very important skill. And subtitles can accidentally weaken it because they remove the need to recover from uncertainty. Everything is always clarified instantly. But real communication never works that way. Sometimes you misunderstand. Sometimes you miss details. Sometimes you guess from context. That is normal human communication, even in your native language. Think about how often people say, "What? Sorry. Can you repeat that?" Real listening has always included imperfection. The goal is not perfection. The goal is adaptability. Now, let me tell you something that most learners completely underestimate. Your listening environment changes your progress dramatically. If every listening session feels stressful, your brain starts associating English with pressure. That is dangerous, because emotionally exhausted learners quit faster. This is why I always tell people, make listening challenging but survivable. Do not torture yourself with content far above your level just to feel ambitious. That destroys confidence. A learner watching complex political debates with heavy accents too early is like someone trying to lift impossible weight in the gym. The result is not growth. The result is injury. Your listening practice should stretch your ability, not crush it. One of the smartest methods is something I call controlled difficulty. You choose content where you can understand roughly 60 to 70% without subtitles. Not 30%. Not 95%. That middle zone is powerful. Difficult enough to challenge your ears. Clear enough to keep your motivation alive. And within that zone, repetition becomes incredibly effective. Most people avoid repetition because they think repetition is boring. Wrong. Mindless repetition is boring. Purposeful repetition is transformative. Athletes repeat movements. Musicians repeat scales. Pilots repeat simulations. Why? Because repetition creates automaticity. And automatic recognition is exactly what listening requires. You want English sounds to become familiar before your brain consciously analyzes them. That only happens through repeated exposure. There are scenes from movies I watched 10 times years ago that still improved my listening more than hundreds of random episodes I barely focused on. Depth beats randomness. Always. Another thing that helped me tremendously was learning to notice sound patterns instead of individual words. For example, native speakers constantly reduce pronunciation. Did you becomes didja. Want to becomes wanna. Going to becomes gonna. At first, learners think they speak too fast. Not always. Sometimes they simply do not recognize reduced speech patterns yet. And subtitles often hide this problem because your eyes see the correct full sentence while your ears hear reduced natural speech. So learners mistakenly believe, I know this sentence, but their ears still cannot recognize the spoken version naturally. That gap matters. A lot. This is why shadowing is so powerful. If you have never tried shadowing seriously, start immediately. Choose a short scene, 10 seconds, maybe 15. Listen carefully, then replay it and speak simultaneously with the actor. Not after them, with them. Copy the rhythm, the speed, the emotional tone. At first, you will fail badly. Good. That failure is training your ears and mouth together. Most learners separate listening and speaking too much, but they are deeply connected. The better you understand spoken rhythm, the more natural your own speech becomes. And the more natural your speech becomes, the easier it becomes to recognize similar patterns from others. Everything connects. Years ago, I shadowed one actor repeatedly from a TV series because I liked his speaking style. Relaxed, natural, clear but fast. At first, I could barely keep up. But after weeks of practice, something strange happened. Other native speakers suddenly became easier to understand too. because my brain had adapted to real spoken rhythm, not textbook rhythm, real rhythm. And that is another important truth. Listening is musical, not just intellectual. English has stress patterns, emotional rhythm, sound flow. Subtitles often trap learners inside visual language while ignoring audio rhythm completely. But rhythm carries enormous meaning. You can often understand emotion before understanding vocabulary. Anger sounds different from excitement. Sarcasm sounds different from sincerity. Train your ears to notice this. Not just words. Communication is bigger than vocabulary lists. Now, honestly, some people watching this video will still ignore everything I said. They will continue watching with subtitles permanently attached to the screen. Why? Because dependence feels productive. It feels like progress. And comfort is seductive. But deep down, many learners already know the truth. If subtitles disappear tomorrow, their listening confidence collapses instantly. That is the test. And tests reveal reality very quickly. But here is the good news. Listening skill grows surprisingly fast once your ears begin doing real work consistently. Faster than many people expect. Not overnight, but faster than years of passive subtitle dependence. One day you suddenly notice, wait, I understood that sentence naturally. Then later, I understood that entire scene. Then eventually, I forgot subtitles were even off. Those moments feel small to other people, but to language learners, those moments feel incredible because they represent freedom, real freedom, the freedom to experience English directly instead of through text support. And once you experience that feeling genuinely, even once, you never want to go backward again. And maybe the most important thing I want to leave you with today is this. Stop treating listening like a school exam. Too many learners sit in front of a movie trying to prove something, trying to prove their English is good enough, trying to prove they are improving, trying to prove they belong. And every time they miss words, they feel defeated. But listening was never supposed to feel like a test. It is training, real training. And training is messy. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel completely lost. Some days English sounds beautiful and clear. Other days it sounds like noise again. That is normal. Do not let temporary confusion convince you that you are failing. Because your brain is changing, even when progress feels invisible. Every minute you spend listening actively matters. Every uncomfortable moment matters. Every scene you replay matters. Your ears are learning patterns slowly in the background. One day, those patterns suddenly connect. And when they connect, something amazing happens. English stops feeling translated. It starts feeling natural. You stop chasing every individual word. You stop panicking during fast speech. You stop depending on text to survive conversations. Instead, you relax. And relaxed listening changes everything. Movies become enjoyable. Conversations become less stressful. Podcasts become understandable. Real people become easier to follow. Not because English became easier, but because your ears became stronger. Remember this clearly. Subtitles are not the enemy. Dependence is the enemy. Use subtitles as support. Use them as a tool. Use them intelligently. But do not build your entire listening life around reading. Because your goal is not to become fast at reading English movies. Your goal is to understand spoken English naturally, and that requires courage. Small courage every day. The courage to sit inside confusion a little longer. The courage to miss words without panicking. The courage to sound imperfect while learning something real. Most people avoid this discomfort forever. That is why they stay stuck forever. Do not be one of those people. 5 minutes a day without subtitles is enough to begin changing your listening. Not 2 hours, not some impossible challenge. Just 5 honest minutes where your ears do the work. That is where transformation begins. And maybe at first it will feel frustrating. Maybe silence will feel uncomfortable. Maybe your brain will beg for subtitles again. Good. That means your ears finally woke up. Stay with the process. Trust the repetition. Trust the discomfort. Trust the small improvements nobody else can see yet. Because one day, maybe sooner than you think, you will watch a scene naturally without reading anything at all. And in that moment, you will realize something powerful. The subtitles were never helping you become free. Your listening was. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And before you leave, I want you to do something simple. Tonight, choose one short scene from a movie or TV show you enjoy. Just 5 minutes. Turn the subtitles off. Not to test yourself, not to punish yourself, to train your ears honestly for the first time. And when it feels uncomfortable, keep listening. Because that discomfort might be the exact moment your English finally starts changing.